There are a couple of questions in the chat, both so far for Corrado from Interpol. So Corrado, I hope you're still there. Yes, you are. Thank you.
Yes, I'm here.
Good. So the first one, a quick question from Lisa Moll, who found your presentation absolutely fascinating. Is there any chance that academics could get access to the database to assess damage?
The database, we don't need that. First, thanks for the question, and thanks to give me the possibility to clarify. The mobile application gives the opportunity to have the access to the Interpol Zone Works of our database to check if an object that you want to buy in front of you was reported as stolen to Interpol. And this is the two main activities. The other two activities, the object ID and the sidecar. These are two different activities that give the opportunity to improve the inventory, thanks to Object ID, and to report damages on cultural areas, thanks to the use of the sidecar, are only in the availability of the users. It means that we don't have access, we don't give access to the Interpol database to store this information. If you wanted to send this information also to us, it's good, but it's not the priority. We created it for the army, for the police that are in rescue situation, rescue operation, and in NATO missions, to give the possibility to report on damages, and to give the opportunity to protect these areas. But the application doesn't give the access to the database for this kind of activities. Indeed, all object IDs and all site cards are not visible by Interpol, only by the user of the cellular phone, where the application is downloaded. You are the only owners of the information.
Okay, thank you. I hope that that answers your question, Lisa. If not, I can put the two of you together if you want to carry on the conversation. The second question that's on the screen and is also for Corrado, and this one comes from Maria Luisa Russo, who at the moment is in Mali. So I hope your connection is working to hear this, Maria. The app is a very helpful tool indeed. The picture of items is crucial for the actual possibility of identifying items in case of theft or loss. Many international projects support digitization of cultural heritage worldwide for preservation, access, and valorization processes. This leads to the creation of CP databases and websites, very rich both in terms of images and in terms of metadata. It would be a step forward also against illicit trafficking if those databases could be put in relation through an agreement amongst donors, institutions, and Interpol. Is there any plan in this direction in the project 21 to 25 that you presented? And she apologizes if you already mentioned that, but her internet connection was going in and out. So I hope she's there again to hear this, Maria. If not, again, I can put the two of you in contact, but Corrado.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for these other questions. For the moment, we are not planning something. For the moment, our main objectives is to give, with the manual and the visual search, the possibilities to all users to check against the Interpol database, and also to give immediately a tool to the law enforcement, to the general public that have to work in inventory objects of art to try to fight the problem of the lack of inventories. And second, to give a real tool to all people that will be in the field during the natural disaster. It was the first step that we move forward. And finally, we have live the mobile application. The second step, we are ready to join eventual projects or to think about projects, but it will be next. Right now, is not included.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just quickly chime in on this regarding databases, and I think this 2125 is related to our project.
I think it may have done.
I think this is a general problem that we worldwide have a huge amount of the databases, but they're not compatible, and everybody is baking their own cake, so to speak. So I think, and I don't have a solution to that, and I don't have an approach to that, but I think that the goal in the future has to be to unify all those databases and therefore make it accessible for everybody and make it readable for everybody. I know Corrado was there. We had an event in Montenegro on creating of databases. And I remember that the creator of the national database was working alone, and therefore was also the only person who had basically the codification and everything set out, and nobody else would understand this database. So if there's something happening to this particular person, the whole database would be lost. So I think the goal has to be in the future to unify all the databases and get one huge database worldwide for stolen and trafficked artifacts. But this is, as I said, I don't have a solution to that, and I hope that we will still be alive to see that one day.
Thank you.
However,
Cory,
if I can, Peter, it already exists an international database for stolen objects of art, is the Interpol one. The only thing is that the information has to be sent by police, by our National Central Bureau. This is the only difference. And the problem is that when they send information, there are no good quality of photos, there are not enough information to be put in the international stolen works of art database, but it already exists. It's only question to push as much as possible information. Indeed, if I can, still 30 seconds, the mobile application wants to change also the via forward to send data to Interpol. Why? Because until now you have to know that 60% of the objects normally looted at the national level, this is a statistic, stay at the national level. Only 40% goes out of the border. Now, until now, the nations sent to us only a few part of these 40%. But today, with the mobile application, all people can check in the nation what the nation will never may be able to think to send to Interpol, because they can think, okay, this is an object that can be solved only at the national level. No, well, we will not send it to Interpol. Absolutely no. Now with the mobile application, this object can be searched by everyone at the national level. Well, the mobile application wants to change the way all objects should be sent to Interpol. Not because we are Interpol, because it's the only database. We have 22 databases worldwide. All databases are structured in totally different way. Well, this is the way to overcome all possible problems for the stolen items. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, and I mean, I think you put your finger on it at the end with your last phrase there for the stolen items. The next question is aimed at Cory, but I think a number of people might want to contribute. And so the question is from Lynn Edwards. It's fascinating that the work of SCRI is both broad and deep in its scope, especially interested by the satellite monitoring projects in response to damage. There are a number of projects across academia and in practice, for example, MENA in the UK, which help to do work on monitoring and evaluation cultural heritage damage. In what ways can we seek to improve coordination and the mutual strength between all of these projects? So, Cory, start off.
Yeah, I think that there's been in the past a sort of notion that, you know, unlike I think that the databases of stolen objects, which probably do need to have, you know, one kind of more comprehensive place to go, with satellite monitoring, you know, it used to be a kind of a rarity, like it was hard to get satellite imagery, etc. Now it's becoming more and more normalized. If you have, you know, if you have a cell phone, you can figure out where you're standing on the planet with the latitude, longitude. If you have access to, you know, even Google Earth imagery is really good. And yes, you have to pay for the really high res stuff or be part of government like the Smithsonian is. So we're able to get the government satellite imagery, but it's becoming so that almost anybody can do this kind of work from open source places. So I don't see the different programs as being sort of, you know, repetitive or duplicating efforts. I see it as we can compare data and really be able to hone in on a particular situation. And, you know, it's science. If you have multiple sources to look at the data, you refine it and you can work better. And so we do, you know, have conversations about this. As mentioned, lots of academic research centers do this kind of work. And we've had, discussions about particular cases around the world. So I think it's a good thing that we have multiple places to go to look at the satellite data and interpret it.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, one comment I'll put into that, as I said yesterday, that one of the activities that the Blue Shield is involved in at the moment is trying to talk with NATO about a database that can be used by the military for identifying places not to target in terms of a conflict area. And one of the difficulties we've had there is convincing some people within the military that some of the open access material is good enough to be used by their targeteers effectively. And there are issues with even some of the high level open access material that the military are concerned don't give them precise enough information in GIS terms and GPS terms for that. So there are still issues around that, but I think we need to work and continue pushing at those boundaries. And here we've got another question for Corey, but I think also that Yusuf might have a view on. Corey's, or the question is, as someone, Corey, who has served both in the heritage sector and also the military, what are some of the challenges that affect civil-military cooperation? Are there difficulties in communication or agreement or an approach due to the difference in the nature of the organizations? Joseph, even though you essentially wear a uniform most of the time, in fact, I think this is the first time in my life I've seen you not in a uniform, but I think it would be a useful exercise just to get your view on that as well. But Corey first.
Yeah, so I think I don't see, you have different missions, right? The military mission is to, fight and win wars. And so, but they have to do it in a way that limits, collateral damage to both people and to cultural heritage sites and, critical infrastructure. So that's, one obvious problem. But I feel like the biggest challenge probably that I can think of that we face as cultural heritage professionals working with the military is the fact that their turnover rate of personnel is a lot faster than ours. And so sometimes it feels like you just get a minister to figure out, why this is important, or even, down at the tactical level, a colonel on the ground, that this is important, and they're gone, and the next person comes in and you have to start all over again with that awareness raising. And that's why the Blue Shield is such an important organization, because we're constantly there raising awareness about the treaty, constantly there insisting on military training for our personnel, and normalizing the idea that it's not a whole new concept to each new leader that comes in uniform, because it's very similar to the Red Cross. Everybody knows what that is. Everybody knows you have to do Geneva Convention training, and we're slowly achieving that with the Blue Shield.
Thank you. Joseph?
Yes, my opinion is a little bit different. We're not an expeditionary forces. Lebanon is a deployed force.
Yeah.
So we're always there on the ground. We don't need to make a task force, put it in the G9 for a mission outside the US. It's a different concept. Here we're deployed, and we're on a daily basis we're facing this. So Lebanon is full of this heritage buildings, and it's really rich with this. So in contact with these monuments, in contact with these heritage, let's say buildings or museum or whatever, we can give a hand to the government, especially in this time. So that's why we have it in different perspective. We don't have it like in the J9, in the J3 and the J4. This is my opinion for that.
Yeah, no, thank you. And you're quite right, obviously, that it's a difference in the way that the military is being used in a particular country that is going to influence how it can interact with the heritage sector.
Let's imagine it that way.
Yeah.
Imagine that we are an expeditionary forces and already deployed.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is what's going.
Yeah, no, I take that. And again, as I said yesterday, if, for those of you who are here, the whole idea of the blue shield being the triangle with 3 points, those 3 points being the uniform sector, the heritage sector, and the humanitarian sector, we all start from different starting points, but I think we all have the same long-term objective, which is the creation of those healthy, peaceful, stable, sustainable communities. Because effectively, if we manage to get those, then we can all go home, because that's the positive end result. I'm not suggesting, unfortunately, that we're all going to be able to go home anytime soon, but that's where we're aiming. Just because we start in different places doesn't mean that we can't aim for that common goal at the end. But yeah. Okay. Marie-Louisa just says, thank you from Mali. She did hear all of that. So Corrado, thank you for that. Patty Gerstenblith has a comment. In creating databases of stolen objects, there needs to be awareness that if the databases are publicly available, this may provide a roadmap to the market how to sell an object rather than preventing illegal trafficking. I think that's probably aimed at you, Corrado.
Thanks for the question. Of course, as I told at the beginning, we have at least 22 stolen national databases worldwide. All these ones are not only structured in different ways, but also not for all of them is foreseen the public visibility of the objects recorded. It may be for different reasons, for ongoing investigations, for a lot of reasons that are national decisions. And this is another reason because we have the Interpol database, because in the Interpol database in 2009 was decided to give the public visibility to all objects, because even if it's a police database with data given by police, at the same time, all people can check before buying objects of art as requested by the Article 4 of the Mutual Convention. It means that there is another reason because the nations should send to us as much as possible information, but we cannot force the nations to give the public visibilities to their data that are always police data. It means that are not accessible to the general public. And they decide they are free, thanks to Interpol, to put what they want public in our database. That at the end is their database, because the Interpol database is a database of 195 member countries.
Okay, thank you. I know we're technically out of time, but I'm going to steal a little bit of everybody's break time with just 2 final questions. First one aimed at Florian. In your presentation, you mentioned that art and artifacts are the world's 3rd most trafficked commodity. How difficult is it to quantify the illicit trade in antiquities and estimate its size? Florian.
To save everybody's time, it's not possible. And that's the answer. No, I'm just kidding. But like, it's really like we would need a crystal ball to really have a rough estimate. And as I said, my rough estimate in the presentation was 3.4 billion to 6.3 billion, and the margin alone shows you that we don't have any idea. And we have to think about factors like the dark web. We have to think about free ports, and we don't know what's going on there. We work together with Homeland Security of the US and ICE, and they work on social media and look what's being sold on Facebook and Instagram and whatnot. But this is just scratching the surface. As once again, like dark web, Tor, Silk Road, and especially also working with WCO, what's actually stored in free ports and shipped from free port to free port, we don't have any idea, and therefore estimating the actual size of the illicit trade is close to impossible. But as Peter said, we start from different points. Maybe we can reach the goal together and find a way to roughly estimate it or better estimate in the future.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. It's a forlorn hope that we're ever going to be able to, put a precise figure on it, because essentially that would mean that all of the those who deal in the illicit trade would have to be clean and explain how much they made from it each year, which is something that probably isn't going to happen. I'm always. I always remember a conversation I had now probably 10 years ago with an American general who was saying, why can't you guys, find out a better figure? And I explained some of the issues, and he said, yeah, well, I mean, actually, from my point of view, even if the total sum of money from he was talking about Afghanistan at the time, of all of the money brought in illegally through the trade into Afghanistan was $100,000 US. That buys a lot of bullets to kill my troops, and I want to stop the trade now. And that's where we actually have to begin thinking. Okay.
And just quickly, sorry,
please.
To add something, because it also ties in with the last question to Corrado for giving the criminals a roadmap how to sell. We have to be aware of the fact that they are always one step ahead of us, and not the other way around.
Yeah, and I think that answers JL's question as well about security in the database. So we've got one very specific and last question for Corey from Isber Sabrine. Thank you very much for all the presentations. I would like to ask Corey if they have any plans to support Nimrud in Iraq.
Yeah, hi, Isber. I didn't talk about it because I was trying to keep to my time, but we've had a project with the State Board of Antiquities and Heritage at Nimrud for 4 years now already. We've been working with them on doing the salvage operation. We've built a new warehouse on the Nimrud site for them to work with the recovery operations, provided supplies, and major heavy equipment for them to use there. So it's an ongoing process, and it's going to take a long time.
Okay, thank you with that. On that, it's just up to me to say thank you to Corrado, to Joseph, to Florian, to Corey for your presentations. Really interesting, really showing the range of partners that we have as possibles, and that we must build those connections with and continue and build on your skills and your expertise. And again, as I said yesterday, start to learn some other people's languages, which is one of the barriers that I didn't understand 10 or 15 years ago, what a force multiplier was. And I didn't understand why the army was always going to the theatre. But in theatre is what the military say. So you have to learn that language so that we can begin to work together to that end result.